oops, a friend came to visit me the other day, and she was talking about these videos that 2 people have seen, and one of them's me. And she said one of her friends talked about them, mentioned them, and said, "Oh yeah, but that's just him rambling because he's there on his own. He's got nothing better to do." It's possibly true, but I don't think it's rambling. Or maybe it is. Maybe I do just ramble. Anyway, that all by the by. I've been looking through some old paperwork, and I always look at this. This happens to me a lot. Right, this is important. This is information that I'm passing on that you should know about, and why I'm always so cheerful. All right. If you understand that, you understand a bit more about me. I don't wear buttons. They're dangerous. You shouldn't wear them. They attract black holes. Black holes are buzzing through the universe at zillions of miles an hour, and if they pass through you, they sap you of energy, and buttons attract them. So I highly recommend don't wear buttons. Anyway, also in the same book, there's some stuff. That was a couple of days before I had my bone marrow transplant a couple of years ago. I think I was probably a bit out of my head on the things that the doctors give you, and my memory wasn't all that it should be, and it was like a bit like this. See, like that? That's the 6-legged spider of memory. Can't remember the other 2 legs. So in that time I wrote this poem, which will explain a bit about how my brain doesn't work sometimes. So it's called Gaps. It doesn't rhyme. It's a poem, but it doesn't rhyme. They don't have to. So here we go. Sometimes in life, the hardest things to admit are gaps. Gaps in your thought processes, gaps in your memories, gaps in your brain, gaps in... Just because I can't remember a date, it isn't because I don't care. Just because I can't remember your name, it's not because I don't care to. Not remembering if your birthday is on the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th or the 14th. I'm sorry if this has ever caused you distress. It was never my intention. I may like you, I may not. It's not why I can't remember your name or date of birth. So if anyone ever asks about this of me, tell them this. I've got gaps. Anyway, that's that over and done with. I'll stop reading out of my sensible book that I mostly wrote while I was having chemotherapy. So it doesn't mostly make sense, because chemotherapy doesn't really make sense. But hey, I want to talk about a little bit about politics. You know, poly meaning many, and ticks being those awful things that bite the fuck out of you. You know, politics. Anyway, so here we go. There's people talking about voting this, voting that, voting the other. I've only ever voted twice in my life. Once for me, when I stood in the election in 2005, and once for my Labour MP at the moment, because it got rid of a Tory MP that had been there forever, so I was really happy about that. Anyway, that's all by the by, so here we go. Here's a poem about it all. Whatever pretty colour your party's rosette is, I hope that you soon realise they all just take the piss. They aren't here for you, and certainly not for me. But why they are is perfectly clear, to stay at the top of the tree. You may feel this all seems simply quite abrupt, but then most politicians are simply quite corrupt. A leading politician decided to cross the road, then claimed 80 quid expenses, the thieving fucking toad. I admit that that's a joke, of course. It is, you see, I'm not a liar. 80 quid was just a start, the claim would be much higher. A day or so, it seems, in the working life, a day or so it seems, in the working life of a lord, is to fall asleep on a leather seat the result of becoming bored. A day in the life of a common, for surely that's what they are, despite the fancy houses and the chauffeur-driven cars, is meant to be what they promised when they stood in a general election. But this is something hard to miss. They are masters of deflection. They all have their own agendas and continue them when they are able. But the promises they made just to get your vote aren't even under the table. So this is a reason why anarchy is superior to this at present. And I'm not evenly distantly royal, no, but I'm still not a fucking peasant. I believe in the people's autonomy, not this crippled, lopsided economy. There was once a Great Depression. That wasn't so great, I'm sure. An era when nobody had any work that ended up in a war. But it's all just manipulation, a means to an end, or horses for courses. The workers were there and the factories. And who'd have thunk it? The natural resources. So if you think my hat's made of tin and all this stuff is just in my head, do the maths, look at the facts, and carefully think about what I just said. There was once a Great Depression. It ended in a war, but the infrastructure to facilitate it were already there before. Whatever pretty colour your party's rosette is, now have you figured out that they all just take the piss? Homelessness, the poor, or people who just aren't healthy, not really on the agenda because that won't keep them wealthy. All my life, I've watched our world get sold from under our feet. The owners now, the oligarchs and political elite, digging it up, knocking it down to overload a purse, destroying what once was beautiful. Nothing could be worse. We live in an autocracy, although they call it a democracy, but everyone knows that's a filthy lie and maybe even hypocrisy. So instead of keeping on asking for things that are already yours, demand the end of this status quo and to change their fucking laws. Or do your things in spite of them. Either will get you my applause. So rouse a politician, wake it from its sleep, say it's time to get a job and leave the leather seat.